Surah Al-Ahqaf. Surah Al-Ahqaf consists of 35 verses including the Makkiyyah surahs revealed after Surah Al Jatsiyah. It is called Al-Ahqaf, which means sand dunes, from the words al-Aqaf, which are found in verse 21 of this chapter. In this verse, and the verses that follow, it is explained that the Prophet Hud, Alaihi Salam, had conveyed his message to his people in Al-Ahqaf, which is now known as Ar Rab'ul Khali, but his people still disobeyed even though they had also been warned by the previous apostles. Finally, Allah destroyed them with a strong gust of wind. This was a sign from Allah to the Quraish polytheists that they would be destroyed if they did not heed the messenger's call. The main contents of Surah Al-Ahqaf, the verses of Allah and the turning of the unbelievers from them. It is mentioned in Surah Al-Ahqaf verses 1 to 7. These verses convey a message about the power of Allah as the creator of the heavens and the earth, as well as the rejection of disbelievers towards the instructions given to them. The Prophet Muhammad was asked to challenge worshippers other than Allah to prove the truth of their beliefs by creating something or bringing clear evidence, but they were unable to do so. People who worship other than Allah will go astray because their worship will not fulfill their prayers until the day of resurrection, and on that day their worship will become their enemy. When Allah's verses are recited to unbelievers, they reject them as magic, showing their disbelief and rejection of the truth being conveyed. The accusation of the disbelievers against the Prophet Muhammad that he had fabricated the Qur'an. It is stated in Surah Al-Ahqaf, verses 8 to 12. The Prophet Muhammad did not make up the Qur'an, and Allah is a witness between the Prophet Muhammad and those who deny him, by reminding him that he is most forgiving and most merciful. The Prophet Muhammad stated that he only followed the revelation he received, not the first messenger, and that arrogant and unjust people would not receive guidance from Allah. The disbelievers rejected the Qur'an despite the testimony of the descendants of Israel, who acknowledged its truth, while they remained arrogant and were not guided by Allah. The Qur'an is said to be a book that confirms previous books, gives warnings to unjust people, and gives good news to people who do good. People who believe and are steadfast. It is mentioned in Surah Al-Ahqaf, verses 13 to 14. People who acknowledge their Lord as Allah and remain steadfast in their beliefs will not feel afraid or sad. They are the inhabitants of heaven who will live forever in it as a reward for their deeds. Their faith and steadfastness will provide security and happiness, and bring eternal rewards in heaven as a reward for the good deeds they do. A testament to humans to be devoted to their parents. It is mentioned in Surah Al-Ahqaf, verses 15 to 20. These verses emphasize the importance of doing good to both parents, respecting their role in conceiving and giving birth and raising a child. An adult child is asked to be grateful for Allah's blessings, do good deeds, and ask for piety for himself and his descendants. Those who do good deeds will be accepted, their mistakes will be forgiven, and they will become residents of heaven according to Allah's promise. However, people who underestimate the resurrection after death and refuse to believe will experience the decree of punishment, along with previous communities, both jinn and humans, as retribution for their disbelief and arrogance. Everyone will receive a reward according to their deeds, and Allah will perfect the reward without committing injustice. On the day of resurrection, arrogant and disobedient disbelievers will be faced with a humiliating punishment because of their arrogance and disobedience in the world. The destruction of the Ad. It is mentioned in Surah Al-Ahqaf verses 21 to 28. These verses tell the story of the Prophet Hud, who reminded his people, the Ad people, not to worship anyone other than Allah for fear of punishment on the great day. Even though Hud only conveyed the revelation he received, the people of Ad remained adamant and wanted the punishment that had been promised if Hud was right. Finally, punishment came in the form of a very painful wind, destroying them until they were no longer visible, as retribution for their denial and disbelief. Allah strengthened the position of the ad by giving them hearing, sight, and heart, but all of this was useless, because they always denied Allah's verses. The lands around Mecca had also been destroyed as a warning, but the gods they worshipped other than Allah were unable to help them, proving the lies and futility of their worship. Broadcasting the Qur'an to the jinn. It is mentioned in Surah Al-Ahqaf, verses 29 to 35. These verses tell the story of when a group of jinn listened to the reading of the Qur'an from the Prophet Muhammad, then returned to their people as a warning. They emphasized that the Qur'an is a book that confirms previous books and guides to the straight path. The jinn invite their people to fulfill the call of the Prophet Muhammad, believe in Allah, and promise forgiveness and safety from Allah's punishment. They also emphasized that there is no protector other than Allah for those who do not fulfill the call of the Prophet Muhammad. Allah is confirmed as the Almighty Creator of heaven and earth, having the power to bring the dead to life. Those who disbelieve will be faced with hell as the truth, and they will feel the punishment for always denying it. The Prophet Muhammad was asked to be patient like the previous apostles and not ask for the punishment to be hastened. Warning is given that only the wicked will be destroyed. Conclusion of Surah Al-Ahqaf. Surah Al-Ahqaf explains that the Qur'an is a revelation from Allah, Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, and conveys the faith of a group of jinn to the Prophet Muhammad, Shalallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This chapter emphasizes the importance of faith, falsehood, and shirk, and confirms that Muhammad's message, peace and blessings be upon him, came from Allah. Apart from that, this chapter contains orders to respect parents and pray for them, as well as warning the polytheists about the punishment that befell the Prophet Hud's people. In the context of faith, this chapter provides postulates regarding the oneness of Allah and states that idol worshippers are heretical, with believers receiving happiness while unbelievers will be punished. The laws outlined include the command to obey parents and not offend them. The story which is told is the story of the Prophet Hud, Alaihi Salam, and his people who turned away from the teachings of Allah. Apart from that, this chapter reminds us that people who only care about the pleasures of worldly life will suffer losses in the afterlife, while people who believe and are istiqomah do not need to worry or be sad.